It is that time of the week where we bring you Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. We'll have our monthly conversation with Decorah School Superintendent Mark Lane later on in the show. Coming up next week, the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce Ag Committee will have its Stay Safe, Take a Break program related to harvest season. We'll talk about that program and a few more things with Jessica Rilling, the executive director of the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce. Some leaf pickup changes in the city of Decorah this year, and the city-based leaf pickup will begin next week. Jeremy Brill is the city of Decorah's engineer, and we will chat with him a little later on in the program as well. But our first guest this morning, for the first time since the pandemic, the New Minowa Players Theater will host a production next week. It'll be a children's production. And here to tell us all about it is Rick and Sheryl Scheffert. Rick and Sheryl will tell us about the production coming next week to the New Minowa Players Theater. We will bring that interview to you now. This is Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Having a conversation this morning with Rick and Sheryl Scheffert from the New Minowa Players. Their upcoming fall children's show, The Wind and the Willow, is taking place later this month. Rick and Sheryl, I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with you guys in quite some time. It's good to have a conversation again and to pass on all the great things that you guys do with the New Minowa Players. Good to have you back on the program.
It's good to finally be back.
Definitely.
Exactly. And obviously the world's been a different place these last 18 months, and that's affected you guys as well. How tough was it to not to get to do your thing this past year and a half?
Yeah, it was a different experience. I mean, we did some online things. We did a children's show online last year, but it's a very different thing than doing something live.
And how, might be a silly question, how is it different not doing things and not having that live audience with you?
Well, a lot of the fun of doing a show, I guess, is getting crowd reaction, and you don't get any of that when you're doing it online. It was still a good thing to do, and I enjoyed that, but yeah, it's just not the same.
You have to trust your own instincts about what people are appreciating and what they're not, in terms of, you know, humor. Is this funny, or, you know, is this poignant, or is this anything? You just have to do it and trust it. It gives you a new appreciation for people who do film as a primary way of presenting their stories. It's not what we're used to.
But you're back to the live audience end of things, and you have the Wind in the Willows coming up later this month. Tell us about this play and this children's presentation. What does it all entail?
Wow, big question.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So it's a story about, it's all animals are the characters in the story, and Toad is kind of a character who, I guess you would say, gets an idea of something to do and goes all out with it, but then gets tired of it and goes on to the next thing and doesn't always make wise decisions. And these other animals are friends with Toad and sometimes try to talk her out of doing things, and sometimes go along with them. But
yeah, in terms of the process, if that's what you were asking about too, it's based on a pretty well-known children's story. So we didn't make up the storyline. Rick edited it down a lot into a play that's about an hour long, and I wrote music and lyrics to go with it. And so we have this year 6 actors on stage, which is very different and probably COVID related, although, you know, the future is the future and we don't know what it is. But in other years we've had, 35, and this year 6. So it's been a treat to work more one-on-one, and it's also been just a whole different process to bring 6 kids into a 1-hour story than to bring 35 kids into a 1-hour story. So that's been an adventure, and we've enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go about taking something that's lengthy and cutting it down to an hour per play and putting the music to it and the lyrics to it and everything like that, how does that process work for you guys? How do you develop that? Because to me, that's always fascinating because that's where you get creative, but you want to remain loyal to the story itself. How does that all work?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky in a way because you have to make decisions about what seems like the most important parts of the story to, get from beginning to end. You have to cut a lot of things out to, because this book is like 130 pages long and we're cutting it down to about an hour show. And so a lot of things in the story just aren't in the show. We had to let them go. And as far as putting music and lyrics to it, I guess I'll turn that over to Sheryl.
Yeah, so I mean, our process has been, and probably will be, that Rick writes what he wants to use as the script first. So I know which parts of the story are there and which aren't there in this case, because I know the story. And I make choices to try and round out that story so that it feels like a story from beginning to end, to the audience who may or may not know the fuller story, so that it feels like a story arc. And I basically just insert songs wherever I feel like it. Sometimes they move the story along in a narrative way, and sometimes they are just animal or critter, in this case, kind of singing what they're thinking or feeling or things like that.
You guys have teamed up on a lot of these in years past. How do you make sure it all gels together like that? Because obviously you guys know each other very well, and you've worked together very well over the years, but you also have independent ideas. How do you make sure everything gels?
Well, I'm going to just say that Sheryl probably does the most of that, because I write the script and then I hand it to her and she figures out how to make the songs fit into it. So, and I mean, not that I never have any input into that, but most of it is up to her.
I think in terms of it gelling it, I've directed enough shows that I know what it's like to sit in that chair, kind of, and I feel that this is Rick's project and I'm helping him with it. And so, I mean, I think while he likes to call it a collaboration, I mean, it's truly a collaboration, but while he likes to share the, we are both doing this, I think at the end of the day, it's kind of helpful to know that if we disagree, I gracefully say, it's your show. I will do it your way. And I think there's a little bit of that has to go on in most creative collaborations that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people always see eye to eye in the end, but I think it moves us forward more quickly when most of the time we do. And I'm sure a lot of the time he says, sure, we'll do it your way. But at bottom line, he's the director. He wrote the script, and that's the final decision maker, really. Is how to move forward and make the show the best it can be. And sometimes it's to lay something aside, even if it was a cool idea to start with.
Well, and does sometimes that process make you a better director and make you a better music and lyricist and everything like that? Does it kind of challenge you to make you guys better at what you're doing when you go through that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that exchange of ideas, I mean, because, on some level, I suppose she's right that I'm the final decision maker, but a lot of times she has really good ideas and I was just like, well, yeah, let's do that. So yeah. And I do think it helps both of us in the creative process of putting a show together.
I think sometimes too, just having like narrow parameters makes you think harder and makes you come up with things that you wouldn't ordinarily jump to. And so, yeah, I like that about collaborating in general, and certainly collaborating with Rick is special for me.
Yeah, I'd imagine that would be the case. Tell us about the presentation and when will it be shown, when you guys get to show off your work to the public?
So next week. We open on Thursday, the 21st, and we have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday show at 7 o'clock and a Sunday show at 2 o'clock.
And how can folks get tickets to it?
So there are tickets available online at newminowaplayers.org, and there's also tickets available at the Oneota Food Co-op.
All righty. Sounds like a great time. And I know this is going to be your first live performance at the theater since the pandemic came into the world. That in and of itself has to be exciting for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time the show back at the New Minowa Players Theater. So I don't know if we said that clearly. It's right back here at New Minowa Players, 906 South Mill Street.
Right.
Anything we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on to the public?
I just hope they come.
Yeah, come on.
All right. Well, good to have you guys back and getting to do your thing and to show off the creative talent that's in our area. And hopefully you'll get a good crowd for all your performances. Good to have the New Minowa Players back in the area. And you got something there, Rick?
I do. I just want everybody to know that we are asking audience members to wear masks for the show because most of the kids are of an age that they cannot be vaccinated yet. So we do want people to come with masks.
So actors will not be wearing masks, but audience members and all of us helpers will be.
All right. That's a good thing to know for the folks that will be going out next weekend. Rick and Sheryl, always good to talk to you. Always great to hear how you guys come together for these great ideas to show off your ability and the ability of many others here in the Decorah area, in the Northeast Iowa area. Thanks for taking the time this morning. Best of luck with the presentation starting next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Rick and Sheryl Scheffert from the New Minowa Players, their first presentation at the theater since the pandemic on South Mill Street next week. The Wind in the Willows, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday. Tickets available at the Oneota Food Co-op and online at newminowaplayers.org. Having a conversation this morning with Decorah City Engineer Jeremy Brill. It's that time of year as the leaves begin to fall, and when they fall on your yard, you got to clean them up. And the city of Decorah is offering some leaf pickup in a certain way to do so. And Jeremy is here to break that down with us. And Jeremy, first of all, thanks for taking the time. And tell us how the leaf collection program from the city gathering perspective will go this year.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Glad to be here and have an opportunity to explain the process. We are changing things slightly this year. So as hopefully everyone knows, the city does collect leaves from your yard. You can rake them into the street, but we do have a set schedule. And so this year, the schedule is going to be, each ward is going to have a different day. And so, for example, Ward 1 will be on Mondays, Ward 2 will be on Tuesdays, Ward 3 Wednesdays, and then Ward 4 and Ward 5 will be on Thursdays. So we'll be in each ward on each one of those days, and then the program starts on Monday, October 18th, so next Monday, and we'll continue for 5 weeks, which gets us to the week just before Thanksgiving. Of course, what the weather dependent, of course, but that is our plan at this point.
How'd you come up with this specific plan and put it into process? Where did this idea come from based on what you've done in the past?
Yeah, you know, over the past few years, we've tried to optimize the process, both for convenience for residents and also efficiency with city staff, resources as well. And so this is one we wanted to try. We're also looking at perhaps in the future, a little bit different method for collecting the leaves. And so we're trying to work our way maybe towards a better process for that as well. But again, just kind of for some feedback we've heard from residents, balanced with how we can best use our staff time and resources.
And if your leaf collection doesn't match those days for city pickup, is the city providing some other ways for people to dispose of their leaves?
Yes, absolutely. So the city's yard waste site out on Trout Run Road is currently open 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. So that is always an option for folks to deposit their leaves out there in the designated area. We have some signs should be pretty easy, hopefully, to drop off if that's a route that folks want to take as well.
I know in years past, there's been a receptacle down at the street department site. Is that available again this year?
Unfortunately, no, that is not available this year, and that is primarily due to some space and storage constraints we have. Actually, our bins are full of leftover salt from last winter, and so we do not have capacity this year to accept leaves here at the street department. But yeah, the yard waste site, like I mentioned, open 7 days a week, sun up, sundown.
And when you are going through the certain wards on certain days of the week, beginning next week, should residents keep anything in mind when it comes to parking along streets on those particular days?
Yeah, good question. We would really like to see cars parked, at least 30 feet away from the piles of leaves, just to allow our equipment to get in and pick up those leaves safely and easily. We use rather large equipment and dump trucks to pick up leaves currently, so the more space we have, the better.
Anything else you want to pass on to folks about leaf collection this fall, or anything else in general from the city street department perspective?
I think in regards to leaves, we do ask that people wait or maybe don't put leaves out in the street sooner than about 48 hours before the designated pickup day. The reason for this is we really want to try to limit the amount of time leaves are in the street. Both from a safety standpoint and also on days like today when we have lots of rain, those leaves get carried and can cause some potential localized flooding issues. So we like to limit the amount of time leaves are in the street. We're hoping that by providing the schedule so people know the specific days will be in the wards, that will help with that as well. But otherwise, we are looking forward to a nice fall, and hopefully that snow is a ways off for us yet.
If you can guarantee that, well, thank you. But nonetheless, Jeremy, we appreciate taking some time and telling us about the leaf collection program in the city that will start next week. Appreciate the time as always, sir.
Yes, Darren, thank you. Appreciate it.
Jeremy Brill, Decorah city engineer, leaf collection starting by day by ward next week in Decorah. Coming up next week, the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce Ag Committee is getting ready for its 18th annual Stay Safe, Take a Break program. And here to discuss that is the Executive Director of the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce, Jessica Rilling. And Jessica, I know this is a program that's been around for quite some time. And with the ag connection to the business community, it's a vital program this time of year and serves as a good reminder to many folks as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, happy to be here. Thank you so much. And this will be my first time participating in the Stay Safe, Take a Break. It's actually the 18th year this year, but yeah, just a really nice tradition supported by a lot of sponsors and businesses, and really is about, I think, celebrating and like that personal thank you. We have a team of vehicles that go out with all of the bags of goodies this year in the northwest quadrant of the county. And it's really about the Chamber's Ag Committee personally giving these bags to people working in the fields and thanking them, talking with them for a while. Of course, a lot of the folks who serve on the Ag Committee have personal relationships with farmers across the county. So just I think a joyful break and really a nice way to show appreciation in person for them during a very busy time.
And it's also a good reminder to everybody in the fields this time of year, because folks in agriculture, they're hardworking people, they're focused people, and sometimes you need that subtle reminder to take care of themselves as well, because taking care of yourself is vitally important this time of year when you're so focused on getting that crop in.
Yeah, it's and I think everyone can kind of relate to that. You get really busy and it's easy to forget to drink water and have something to eat, and you're tired and really pushing, especially during those good weather windows. So yeah, we that was a big part of why it started, was helping to address just farmer fatigue. And I think this is a really positive way to do it. So not just telling them to take a break, but actually like bringing them things to help them do so. And kind of getting just that personal interaction where we're able to express appreciation for all they're doing.
And what all is usually in these goodie bags that you get to deliver every year during this program?
Yeah, it's a nice combination of things they can enjoy right there. There's a lot of snacks, water, but also some good safety things that I think, you know, end up on the floor of your truck or you forget in the house. So, you know, new earplugs, safety glasses, nice gloves. So things that, you know, get used up and worn out. So we're happy to kind of give them new sets of all of that and things they could maybe use right away, or just have at the ready. So
when will you be going out into the fields in the northwest quadrant of the county?
Yeah, so we really look to the folks who are harvesting and have friends and family who are harvesting. So the date picked this year by the committee is Wednesday, October 20th. And we have 6 different trucks of committee members and volunteers that will be out, each with, you know, an allocation of those stay safe, take a break bags.
And one of the neat things that is involved with this is you get the local 4-H and FFA kids involved as well in this program. How are they specifically involved?
Yeah, they have been just a wonderful supporter. Those groups will come in Tuesday. So Wednesday's the event. Tuesday, we have them coming in. They actually pack all the bags, which is a fair amount of work. We have a lot of stuff that goes into those. So they help get everything ready, count out the bags for each of the trucks that go out. And I think depending on, for some of them, availability, if they can ride along the next day, they will. But yeah, they do a lot of the hard work to get the bags ready.
Stay safe, take a break, taking place next Wednesday in the northwest quadrant of Wenatchee County. And I'm guessing the quadrants are 9 and 52. Is that how you divide the county?
Yeah, I believe so. And I'm really thankful to have such an experienced ag committee that understands all the ways we'll be driving and where we'll be going. So this is a learning year for me, and they're really leading the charge.
Anything else, as long as we have you here, that you want to pass on from the chamber perspective? I know holidays are coming probably before we know it here in the not too distant future. And anything else you want to pass on from the chamber perspective?
Yeah, just I think probably a lot of people are, we're all hearing about supply chains. And so it's not too early to think about giving thoughtful, locally purchased gifts. And, there'll be a lot of the things that have been traditions here happening again, the lighted parade and Santa and, great retail opportunities to enjoy the downtown. But it seems to be kind of what a lot of people are talking about right now is just starting to plan gift giving a little bit earlier. I think the community did a great job supporting local last year, and I'm sure they'll do the same again this year. But I think everybody is ready to kind of shift into that mode. Well, and it's cold and rainy outside, so it makes it even easier to start thinking about all of the holiday stuff. But the local retailers are trying to anticipate problems with shipping and products and stuff. So I think just for everybody, a little bit earlier this year will serve you well for your planning.
Not to be stereotypically, are you telling us men to not procrastinate like we usually do when it comes to the holidays?
Well, if you do procrastinate, I started at the end of December last year, and I will say I was just delightfully surprised how many people, lots of gentlemen who come in really close to Christmas for gift purchasing, and chamber dollars are available to you up until the very last minute. So if you don't buy your local gifts quite in time or can't find what you want, that is a way to keep dollars local and really circulating within our local economy. So even if it's, you know, the day before Christmas, you can still come in.
All right, Jessica, we appreciate you taking some time telling us about the great program taking place next week. Stay safe, take a break in the northwest quadrant of the county. And when the holidays get closer, we'll probably get you back on to talk about the great things related to holiday shopping locally in the Decorah area as well. Always a pleasure catching up with you again. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, happy to be on. Have a good rest of your day.
Jessica Rilling, Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce. Stay safe, take a break is next Wednesday in the northwest quadrant of Wenatchee County. Time now for our monthly conversation with Decorah School Superintendent Mark Lane. And Mark, October is usually the month where you talk enrollment. And of course, many of us in the public, myself included, I think of enrollment as students in desk. Of course, from a calculating standpoint and an administrative standpoint, a reporting to the state standpoint, you got to think of it in various different ways. Explain to us what the difference is between students in desk, certified enrollment, any other totals that you have to report to the state related to how many students are in your district at a current time.
Yeah, absolutely. The things that really go into creating that picture of annual enrollment in October for each school year is really the students in your district that are considered resident students. That means their home is within your district boundaries. And some of those students, most of them, are attending our schools. And so they are district students and they're in a desk somewhere in our district. Then we also have resident students that are open enrolled out. They live within the boundaries of Decorah Community School District, but they attend school in a neighboring school district, or they may attend a public school that's one of the virtual schools. And so we have to figure that certified enrollment around who lives in the district and is attending, who lives in the district and is open enrolled out. And then our served enrollment is a combination of that certified enrollment, the students that live in the district, but then we also have open enrolled in students. So their physical address is in a neighboring district or in another district in Iowa, but they've submitted open enrollment paperwork and that's been accepted by both school districts, and then they're attending school in Decorah schools. And so then another factor that goes into that overall served enrollment are the students that may be engaged with our homeschool assistance program, or students that may participate in something called dual enrollment. And again, that would be where they're doing some form of homeschooling, but they're spending a portion of their day perhaps taking one course in our school, or they're participating in an extracurricular activity. That student is considered dual enrolled. And so it's really the homeschool assistance program participation and dual enrollment that leads to those numbers having a decimal point in them. I think that's a question people have is, well, why is the served enrollment 1,627.9? So a homeschool assistance program student, they're considered 0.3 for funding purposes. So our students generate funding, and a student that's dual enrolled or in homeschool assistance, they generate a portion or a fraction of that full student enrollment. And so certified enrollment, open enrollment in, homeschool assistance participation, and any dual enrollment, all of those things go together to drive that served enrollment. We take that count on October 1st, and then we certify that on October 15th. And really what's going on in between those 2 weeks, between October 1st and October 15th, is really cleaning up conflicting data. Every school district in the state is submitting their data to the Department of Education, and the Department of Education is pushing back potential errors. School districts may they may be counting the same kid, and each student can only be counted once. And so we have to clean up some of those discrepancies between districts and make sure that across the state, the appropriate district is counting that student. And then obviously then that drives funding. The count that we took this year on October 1st actually drives our funding for next school year. So right now, the students, the programming that we're offering, our funds are connected to what the enrollment count was last year. So we're in fiscal year 22. The count we took this year will drive our funding for that school year, the 2022-2023 school year.
What did those reports show for enrollment in this district as compared to years past? Over the last 7 years, we have a downward trend in enrollment. Our most significant drop in enrollment occurred last year. And I think that part of that was related to things related to the COVID pandemic. Last year, we went down a little bit over 80 served students. This year, our count went down right at 18 served students. And so that's closer to where we have been in previous years, other than last year. But really over the last about 5 to 7 years, we've seen a downward trend that has probably been about 15 to 20 students per year. And so I think really what's driving that is for the past few years, we have graduated somewhere between 140 to 150 seniors. And then the next year, that incoming kindergarten class, they've been smaller. We're bringing on a kindergarten class that is somewhere between, potentially 20 to 35 to 40 students smaller than the incoming class. I think one of the things that we try to do is really think about our unique situation here in Decorah, where we have multiple options that families can consider for schooling options. So families may choose to go to St. Ben's, and that they can attend St. Ben's through 8th grade. Families may choose to attend Northeast Iowa Montessori. And so, one of the things that we do is we communicate with those partners, because we know that as students in our community, as they get older, likely they're going to come together around 8th grade, 9th grade. And so as we get to count day, we communicate with St. Ben's and Northeast Iowa Montessori. And so when I talk about the incoming kindergarten class being significantly smaller than last year's graduating class, that's including kids that are attending St. Ben's and Northeast Iowa Montessori. As a collective group, I think that group this year is about 111 kids, and I think it's around 90 of those kids are attending Decorah Community School District. Other students may be at St. Ben's or at Northeast Iowa Montessori. A drop of 18 students in enrollment, what does that mean for state funding?
Students, that per pupil funding for the fiscal year 23 will probably be about $7,500. This current school year at $7,227. So if you think about, each student being in the 22-23 school year, each student being generating about $7,500. It's approaching $200,000 in less funding, $185,000.
And what type of challenges does that present for a district having nearly $200,000 less from the state coming in?
I think it absolutely creates challenges, and I think if people listened or thought about conversations we had last year at the board table, they may know we went into this school year with one less section of transitional kindergarten. We went into the summer with one less section of second grade and one less section of third grade. We had an interesting summer where we had students going into second grade. We had 10 new students move in over the summer that were second grade age. And so in early August, we went back and we hired a fifth section of fifth grade. But it really is, if your funding is decreasing, if your number of students is decreasing, you have to look at your staffing. Our annual budget, a little bit over between 77 to 78% of our, and this is typical of most school districts, about 78% of our annual budget is compensation and benefits. So it goes into the people who serve kids. And so if we start to see 10%, if we have a reduction of 10% of students, we have to evaluate, where do we potentially have to make staffing reductions? And so we're trying to be proactive and to not wait. We don't want to wait and pretend like nothing's happening for 5 years and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we've got to make big cuts. I'm not sure where this comes from. It might be a Peter Senge quote, but there's a quote around that, change happens gradually and then suddenly. We don't want this to feel like it happened suddenly to us 3 years from now. We want to be planful about making adjustments as we go. And so, if we have a retirement, if we have a teacher resignation, we talk about, is this a time when we might make a reduction in order to optimize our budget? And so I think those are conversations that I think we'll have annually over the next few years, because we see that trend of, like I said, probably, depending on the year, I think we're going to see a downward trend of 10 to 20 students a year until we get to a new normal. I talked with our board, and I think you and I maybe talked about this last year. I think this is really looking back historically and then thinking forward. It really seems like we're kind of right in the middle of about a 20-year transition. And this started before I came to the district, but I know in the past, Decorah graduating classes may have been around 180 students. That's not true anymore. We're now in a phase where our graduating classes seem to be right around 140 to 150. It looks like 5 to 10 years from now, based on our projections, those graduating classes are more likely to be between 115 to 125. So that 20-year transition from graduating 185 students to more likely graduating about 120 students, we just have to be thoughtful about how we manage that change over that 20-year period. And I think the board and Superintendent Haluska, they tried to lay the groundwork for that work, and we continue to do that work now. On October 21st, our business manager, Kathy Dietzenbach, and I, every year in October, we go to a full-day workshop where we work on building a 5-year budget projection. And we build different models. We say what happens over the next 5 years if our enrollment goes down 100 students? What happens to our budget if our enrollment goes down 50 students? And so we're building out that 5-year budget plan so that then we can talk with the board about, here are scenarios of what we might see over the next few years, and here's how we might go about managing our system because of those changes.
and basically take your Dramamine based on the roller coaster you're talking about there. But being the fact that this year's enrollment affects the funding for fiscal year 2023, does that allow you a little bit of time to manage the situations that you were just talking about?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, that's why I think it's important that really, things are happening with school budget where all districts in our state, and we do a lot of this work collaboratively. And for example, on that October 21st day, Kathy and I will be in a room in Cedar Rapids with superintendents and business managers, probably from 30 to 40 Northeast Iowa districts, right? We come together because we all use the same funding formula. We deal with some of the same issues. And so to do that work collaboratively and have opportunities to talk about how we're addressing those things, I think is really critical. And we're doing that work now so that we can have that plan well in advance of the first day of school, August of 2022.
The board this week, the presentation at the board meeting had everything to do with the Every Student Succeeds Act. And first of all, tell us what that act is, how it relates to the district, and what did that information show based on last year's report related to the, I believe, ESSA Act, if we're going to use acronyms. Yep. Is that the right acronym to use?
That's how you've just been initiated into the club of educational acronyms. So yes, we call it ESSA. So the Every Student Succeeds Act is it's the current name for federal education law. Probably the best, the most well-known name of federal education law is No Child Left Behind. So when federal law is updated in relation to federal law that relates to public education, I think kind of every administration puts their name on it. And so when it was reauthorized in the past, that's when it was called the No Child Left Behind Act. The most recent reauthorization, it was titled the Every Student Succeeds Act. So that's just the reauthorization of federal law around public schools and public education in our country. A big part of federal law that comes down from the Department of Education is around accountability. And that really started with No Child Left Behind, and it was really hyper-focused at that time on academic achievement. And so I think people have, people I think sometimes have a negative connotation with No Child Left Behind. I would say one thing that was the benefit of that was just a focus on accountability, that we're accountable for the results we produce in education. The idea around advancing that in ESSA was, well, it's not just about one test score from one test given once a year. And so every state had to develop a more comprehensive accountability plan. And so now in Iowa, we have what's called the Iowa Performance Profile. And it's a website where anybody can go and see really how public school districts in Iowa are performing on multiple measures. That may be around graduation rate. It may be around academic achievement. It might be around the survey we talked about at the board meeting, the Conditions for Learning survey, which is a survey given to students about how they feel about their learning environment. And so there's these multiple factors that now go into determining really how schools in Iowa are performing. So what we talked about kind of was that general picture of accountability, and then one part of that accountability picture, which is the Conditions for Learning survey, which is administered in the spring to students in 3rd through 12th grade. And it's just a test, or not a test, but it's a survey of Iowa students really around how do they feel about their physical and emotional safety at school, how do they feel about relationships between students, student-to-student relationships, adult and student relationships, and then just the expectations and boundaries in place. Those are the 5 constructs that the survey assesses. We get our data back as a district. We can look at it at the building level, and then we can compare our data to past years when we've given the assessment, or we can also then compare it to like other schools in the Keystone AEA or schools from around the state. And so really, we administered that assessment in the spring. We received results here in the last few weeks, and now our buildings and our staff, we're just trying to take in and say, well, what are strengths? And I would say I see strengths around the fact that in all areas, we seem to be performing above average for our state. I think there's strengths in the fact that our students seem to feel positively about student-to-student relationships and student and adult relationships in our buildings. They feel that they have an adult that cares about them at school. The area that I would say is for our state and for our district can be an opportunity for improvement is around emotional safety. Do students feel like they're free from bullying? Do they feel free from emotional stress in that school environment, from feeling excluded at school? And so, how we help students and how we support students with really having an environment where they feel like they belong, where they feel like there is that safety to be themselves. If they are struggling, that they know people that they can reach out to for support and assistance, I think is really critical. It's part of why last school year we added a position in our district of facilitator of student and family services, because we know we need to increase our capacity to have those mental health and well-being supports for students. I think we knew that before the pandemic, and I think the environment of the pandemic has just, it's created stressors for families and students and for staff that we have to be mindful of. And so we'll continue to work and to understand those results and to try and put things in place so that students do feel positive, that they feel good about that learning environment. They spend a lot of time here. They spend a lot of waking hours involved in school and school activities. And so we want that to be a space that feels safe, that they feel supported, they feel they can be themselves, and then learn and grow.
And earlier this week, the board approved the purchase of some air purification units for district buildings. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have two older buildings, West Side and John Klein. We know from feedback and information from in places like the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics that air quality is an important element of COVID-related mitigation strategies. As we went into the year at those two buildings, and last year, we have certain times of the year when we can keep windows and doors open. We're getting further and further, or we're getting closer and closer to the time when that's not true. And so we've purchased what's called an ISO Air is the company that we worked with. My understanding is that the Vesterheim Museum made a purchase of these same units recently, and it's a company that the Mayo Clinic Health System has used. And so as we talked about air quality mitigation at Westside and John Klein, the most important thing to us was to actually purchase units that are going to do what they need them to do. Over the last 6 months, I think, and I know this is true of school administrators from all over the state, I bet I get a salesperson phone call or email almost every hour with wanting to sell me some kind of air quality unit. Not all those air quality units are created equally, and we really wanted to make sure that what we purchased was actually going to do what we were buying it to do. And so our board approved, it'll be, our units, we're purchasing 43 units that we're confident will serve the spaces. Different rooms have different cubic feet. And and so we really need to be thoughtful about the units that we put in that space, that it's actually going to circulate and purify the air for the entire space. And so we expect that those units will be here in the next couple of weeks, and that we can get those in place and just add that to our mitigation strategies. So the purchase will be, I think the board approved it's right at about $82,000. And this is a part of the federal government approved COVID relief funding, again, that comes from different acronyms. This is, we talked about ESSA, this is ESSER, ESSER, ESSER funds that will allow us to make this purchase not using general fund dollars.
2-syllable acronyms, that's the only thing I can handle. And I guess the final point I'll bring up to you, you updated the board the other night on an employee referral bonus program to help get some more people into this district as employees. Give us the latest on that, and what's the reason behind it?
The board tabled the proposal that I brought to them, and so what the proposal that we brought was a referral process proposal that would incentivize current employees who make referrals for people that we would potentially hire. And so if a current employee referred someone that we hired, when that hired person was with us for a full year, then that person that had made the referral would get a stipend of $250. Things that the board brought up, one was the potential around more so incentivizing those people who are hired. And then there were also some questions just around, if that would be an effective incentive. And then also some questions around the idea that might create some dynamics with neighboring school districts, where, we create this ladder of each of us trying to kind of outdo the other. And I understand where that perspective comes from. We I think in our business and education, we try to be really collaborative, and we try to not create these competitive environments between school districts, because we want all kids to be successful, not just students in Decorah. I want every student. I want every student in our state, in our country, to have a quality teacher, to have quality service. And so, but it's and this is not just an education issue. This is a local issue and a state issue. We're challenged with workforce capacity. We struggle from time to time to generate applications for a special education associate position. We see reduced numbers of applications for teaching positions. The last 2 meetings of kind of statewide meetings that I've been to, I went to a meeting last week with school administrators of Iowa. And then Kathy, our business manager, and I, just yesterday, we were in Des Moines for an Iowa Association of School Board meetings. And significant time at these meetings is dedicated to what are you doing? What are we doing about workforce shortage in education? And so I think thinking creatively and thinking about how we're going to make sure that we're providing a workforce that meets our needs is just, it's critical in our state, and we're seeing that in our school district. And so whether it's incentivizing people to refer, or finding a way to incentivize longevity or retention, I think there are things that we just need to consider. That, before I came to this district, I worked in HR. Everything I did was about hiring and retention. And 5 to 7 years ago, I didn't ever think about creating bonuses and incentives, because the applicant pool was just there. They just they wanted to work in a school. For associates, they liked the idea of having a schedule that was the same as their kids. And so we found lots of parents who, I just want to be on my kid's schedule. I'm going to apply for an associate position, so I can have summers off, so I can take my kids to school and pick them up at the end of the day. And that's not enough. It just doesn't appear like that's enough anymore to really drive the kind of applicant pools that we really need to fill those positions.
I know we've covered a wide variety of subjects during our conversation. Anything else you want to pass on to the public, as long as you got the horn?
I think people should be aware that next week we are hosting a state qualifying cross-country meet. That will be out at Oneota. We hosted the conference meet out there last night. I'm a former cross-country dad. My son Will was a cross-country runner. And if you've never been to a cross-country meet, I always loved watching my son run. I never ran along with him, but I picked my spots on the course where I was going to watch him run by and cheer him on. But the state qualifying meet next Wednesday would be, if you're want to support our runners or just see high school kids in action, that's a fun event to attend.
And the thing about cross country that I've always respected as a sports media guy for 20 some years, it's the only sport where the last place kid in an event is doing something that most people don't do. In all honesty.
Yep. It is.
It's a great sport.
It is a great sport, and it's a sport where the kids, right, they're competing, but they are incredibly supportive of each other. And you see that where there are kids who, there are going to likely be hundreds of kids who finished before them, but their teams and even kids from other school districts, that support that they lend to each other to just finish and get a personal best or do. It was something. I didn't do that as a high school student, but my son enjoyed it greatly, and it was fun to watch.
All right, Mark, we appreciate your time as always. Always interesting conversation, and thanks for adding to my knowledge of educational acronyms as well.
You bet.
Mark Lane, Decorah Schools Superintendent. Our thanks to our guests on the program this morning, Rick and Sheryl Scheffert from the New Minowa Players, the Wind and the Willows, taking place next Thursday, October 21st, October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. More information available at newminowaplayers.org. It'll be the first presentation since COVID-19 became a part of our world at the New Minowa Players Theater at South Mill Street in Decorah. I want to thank Jeremy Brill, the Decorah city engineer, for telling us what the city's going to do regarding leaf pickup. That program will start on Monday of next week. They're doing it by wards. And then we also want to thank Jessica Rilling, the Stay Safe Take a Break program from the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce. Going to be in the northwest quadrant of the county next Wednesday. Just a good reminder for the hardworking folks out in the fields during this harvest time to take care of yourselves, most importantly, and take care of everything else around you. And that program will go next Wednesday, and always an interesting conversation when we chat with Decorah Schools Superintendent Mark Lane. Don't forget, each and every week we put these shows on YouTube so you can actually see the people we talk to on a week in and week out basis regarding the interesting events and what's going on here in the tri-state area. Our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. Our thanks to our guest as well. Most importantly, our thanks to you for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching our town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.